Welcome to Season 2 of Build and Grow, a series dedicated to helping businesses go beyond financial management to achieve financial growth, resilience, and innovation. As businesses continue to revive and pivot to new models in these times, Your Story is proud to partner with HSBC for another season of inspiring conversations, insights, and observations from some of the newest trendsetters in business and stalwarts of the ecosystem. Tune in to power your next phase of growth and business continuity.
Raghav, very good talking to you because most people watching today would have heard of the different brands, if not all, one or the other brand. And recently I ordered from Oven Story.
Okay.
And it looked like naya pizza hai, alag pizza hai, fresh pizza. And I think
Great.
that somewhere sums up what I was reading on your website also, Rebel Foods, right? Like to create, among other things, what I really liked is that you said that to create high quality food with high quality products and delivering it to people. But anyways, before we get there, I want to ask from you, this year has been a roller coaster of a year. What has it meant for you and your brands?
First of all, Shraddha and team Your Story, thank you for having me here. On behalf of Rebel Foods, I can say that I would like to congratulate how you've built the brand Your Story into a powerful platform which inspires entrepreneurs by aspiring entrepreneurs by sharing stories of those who have dared. And I would sum it up by saying that Your Story and Your Story both are really inspiring.
Wow, thank you so much, Raghav.
It's a privilege to be here. Now, on your question, it's been a roller coaster of a ride for us. If we look at our journey, we moved from about 150 kitchens to 190 from 2018 to 19, from 2017 to 18, and in 2019 we expanded really fast. Our 190 kitchens, and each kitchen is basically 10 restaurants, with Oven Story being one, Behrouz Biryani being other, and likewise. So every kitchen is 10 internet restaurants, 10 brands that are being prepared in that kitchen. So with number of kitchens for us moved from 190 to 325 in just 2019 alone. So it was a year of aggressive expansion for us. And then just at the beginning of 2020, when we were further, planning to increase the number of kitchens, then COVID hit. And initially there was obviously a knee-jerk reaction. People wanted to, just be home. A lot of people moved to tier 2 towns to be with their families. In general, the whole scare around safety impacted the entire industry. Dine-in restaurants were, hit really badly, with dine-in like becoming 0%. Delivery also came down very drastically, and regulatory challenges were there massively. So people could not travel by train, could not reach kitchens, and there were restrictions on the number of operating hours. There were full-scale lockdowns. All of that, the period of last week of March, April, May, I would say even June, was a period of lot of learning for us, trying to make sure that our teams are safe. They are able to reach kitchens wherever they are not. They are safe at their homes, taking care of them. Wherever we are able to serve customers, we do so with the highest standards of safety and hygiene, which customers anyway expect. But during this time, it became even more heightened in terms of customer expectations. So that was the period for us of completely changing how we operated. Instead of aggressive expansion, as I said in 2019, it all sort of moved into a completely different trajectory during that period. Our 325 kitchens initially came down to only 170 operating kitchens. So we effectively hibernated a lot of our kitchens where there were complete lockdowns. For example, I remember a period of a month in 15 to 20 days in Hyderabad where there was complete, ban on food delivery. The aggregators also, just couldn't function during that time. So we ended up hibernating a lot of those kitchens. There was no point of calling teams there. And from there, we started the recovery from May, June period. Now we have the entire network live. And our focus during this time has been to make sure that customer experience moves to another level. Our employees are absolutely safe and happy to come to the kitchens, work, be safe in the work environment. We maintain all the right protocols. So that has been the big focus. It has been on a path to recovery for us. And there are a few things which have actually worked in our favor during this time. I would like to, probably highlight a couple of those things. For example, when people have moved in with their families, staying in groups, the average cart size has increased a lot. Earlier when one person would order just one biryani for himself or herself, now when there's in a family together, they are ordering biryani plus pizza plus a wrap, all of it. So our cart size has seen a tremendous jump. Because of that, the average order value has seen a tremendous jump of about 2.5x as compared to pre-COVID. Brands which are more focused on indulgence category, things that people can't make at their homes. So people can make, home food. So our brands focused on home food such as Lunchbox, which is one of our brands that has obviously been impacted the most. But brands like pizza, Oven Story Pizza, categories like biryani, where we have Behrooz Biryani, Mandarin Oak, our Chinese brand. These are the things that people find it difficult to make at their homes, and people are looking for that indulgence, especially during these times when things are not so positive. People are looking for that for satisfying that craving. And Sweet Tooth, our dessert brand, these have really taken off. They're doing much better than pre-COVID levels. While brands which are focused on homely meals, which was a different mission before COVID hit, that is right now not such an important mission for our customers. So we have seen a lot of these dynamics changing in the industry, and for us it has worked in a positive way. Another thing we've seen is customers now are placing a lot more premium on safety, hygiene, on brands that they can trust, right sort of packaging, as compared to probably earlier where a customer would choose a 200 rupee product over a 250 rupee product purely because it was less expensive. Now if the customer can get many more details about who cooked the product, is the packaging right, does the brand have the right set of feedback from customers, we are seeing a lot of those things becoming more and more important instead of just pure sort of discounts or the pure price. And that has worked in our favor because all of our we've really focused on those things during this time. So yeah, that's how I would summarize. Our focus has also increased on some of these things, and we've also seen the customers very quickly move into this new way of purchasing.
Yeah, Raghav, what you are saying is important, because this is important for us as a country, because a lot of entrepreneurs in different segments, not necessarily in your category, they are saying that safety, now finally safety, quality, brand, and where is it coming from becomes important. And that brings me to my next question. Very boldly you have put on your website and everywhere, and I was reading the Medium post by your co-founder and listening to you speak, that we are the world's largest internet restaurant company. Now, yes, and that's something that we as a country, to a few young entrepreneurs building that. And then you also compare it that, while the disruption has happened in different segments, the most valued company in your category still remains McDonald's. And you guys are on mission to disrupt that. Tell us, this is bold, this is audacious, this is big, and this is so amazingly Indian. Tell us how are you thinking this, doing this, building this? Because this will be very important for all the entrepreneurs who will be watching.
Yeah, so I think you might have read one of Jaideep's, who's our founders, his posts, and the initial idea behind Rebel Foods was our first brand called Fasos. Fasos was what Jaideep and Kallol, who started the company, they conceptualized. And at that time, the whole idea was exactly what you mentioned, Shraddha, that all the big brands in the space that time were McDonald's, Domino's, KFC, Pizza Hut. They had done well in India, and they had really taught us Indians that how to create brands at a national scale. And
Yeah.
again, a lot of processes brought in for the first time in the country, and they've done a phenomenal job on that. What the question that got Jaideep thinking was that there is no chain which is of a national scale which is serving Indian food to Indians. Most of the chains were regional in nature. So we had some folks who had done really well. For example, Paradise Biryani in South, Haldirams in Central, and brands like Bikaner Wala in North. But there was nobody who was at a national scale and who was actually serving Indian food. Cafe Coffee Day again was not that big that time, but it was the other scale one. Subway again. So all of these were Western food concepts: burger, pizza, fried chicken, sandwich. And Jaideep and Kallol thought that how about we try to create a chain which serves great Indian food, at a great value, and with the right trust, safety, hygiene, which Indians love all over the country, and not just in India but globally. That was the vision with which Fasos was started. And now Jaideep and Kallol being Bengalis, the Kolkata wrap, the Kolkata street wrap was the initial product that they thought of, because that was again something that people love on the streets. But if you have to serve it to people as a family at their homes on delivery, then questions start coming to people's minds. So the idea was that, can that product be created in a way a burger or a pizza is created, and which is great for delivery with right levels of safety, trust, and hygiene? And that's how Fasos was born. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but what Fasos initially stood for was fanatic activism against substandard Occidental shit.
No, I didn't know this.
So yeah, I mean, it was maybe going a little bit too far, but with all due respect to all the guys who've done really well, and there's a reason they've done well. McDonald's, Domino's, they've really brought in the right set of processes to the country in those years of 90s and 2000s. But Jaideep really wanted to create a brand, with Indian food, and that's where Fasos was born, with a focus on wraps. But over time, as we realized that we are getting a lot of orders on delivery, 80-90% orders were on delivery. And when we asked those delivery customers that, have you seen the Fasos outlet? Because we used to have small outlets, not very large, in various places of a city. Then 70-80% had not seen an outlet ever. So then we thought that, why should we even take a ground floor front facing space for which we pay 200 rupees per square foot? And that's where we just started opening places which can only serve on delivery. And there the rentals came down. We could save costs, and that could go to customers as more value. And this started happening in 2013 and 14. And the next thing we know is that this concept is known as cloud kitchens, so to speak, in 2015-16. So 2013-14 is when we started focusing on only delivery and this new model. And then when we started doing that, we realized that for a customer, the customer segment as such changes for the same customer multiple times a day. Let me just take a minute to elaborate on that. So if you're buying a car, and you have a budget of 10 lakhs, so you are a customer who Honda City can possibly target, right? With a 10 lakh car. For in case of food, the same customer can actually be targeted for different times of the day, for different missions for the same customer. So when the person is in office, that time they want something light, they want something healthy. The same customer, on weekend wants to party and wants to order pizza for people who have come home. Some other time when there are guests, they want to order biryani. And that time, the wallet size for the customer also keeps changing with each of these missions. Weekday lunches, for example, people don't want to spend typically more than 100 to 120 rupees. But on weekend, the same customer is okay spending 500 to 700 rupees on a different category. So for the same individual, the segments keep changing. And that made us realize that, why should we focus on only making wraps as a brand, from our kitchens? When we can get the same customer to actually order multiple times through another brand. So that's when Behrouz Biryani was born as the second brand, and followed by Oven Story Pizza and Mandarin Oak and all the other brands. And now we realize that, when we serve pizza in Fasos, then people don't really, think about ordering it, because people in food, people really associate cuisines with brands. So if a brand which is known for pizza starts serving biryani, then people would have questions ki order karu ya nahi karu, ye inka to pizza acha hai, etc, etc. So that is why if we are launching pizza, we thought that instead of launching it in Fasos, why not have a separate brand which tells the brand proposition story in a better manner. And that is why our model effectively shifted into a multi-brand cloud kitchen model. And that's been basically our journey over the last 4 to 5 years. And when we realized that this is working, that is when in 2018 and 19, we really expanded in terms of our kitchen presence, leading us to become the world's largest internet restaurant companies. So, while it's been quite a journey, I think it's also been a journey of trying many different things. I've just, highlighted the things which worked. There were like 20 other things which did not work for us during this time. And the strategy of, learning fast, failing fast, I think that worked in our favor so far. We are still, in early days, it's still day one, but we really hope to, take the concept all over the country, all over the world. We are now there in 6 countries. Singapore opened just, last week for us. We are there in Malaysia, Indonesia, Dubai, and the UK. And I think the whole world is warming up to the idea of cloud kitchens. And we definitely feel that, we have a chance to build something which is unique, which is coming from India. People always, as Jaideep has mentioned, people always think about Indian companies, copying concepts which have started in the West and, bringing them to India. So the X of Uber, the Uber of India, instead of that, we want people to say that this company is the Rebel Foods of Brazil. And likewise, we want something which is truly born in India and, which makes us and everybody in India proud of.
Yeah, no, just listening to you, I'm sure, of course, all of us are feeling very proud. I have a question. And of course, there's time constraint, but I want to understand what you're saying. बहुत simple लग रहा है, मगर journey I'm sure would have been, and the backstory would have been one of great, a lot of learnings, lot of mistakes, lots of challenges. Raghav, many people start this, many people want to do this, and food, many people think कि चलो food में करते हैं, किसी को भी आज पूछो, then everyone will say, oh, we want to become a restaurateur, or we want to do this, and so many cloud kitchens, so to say, we've seen come and go. But you guys have not only stayed, because early days, I'm sure Fasos had so many things we were hearing about it, but you've stayed true and grown, like you said, in 2019. And if you have to look back and say that, okay, these are 2-3 things why we survived and why we've grown and why we are scaling vis-a-vis so many others, what would you as an entrepreneur say worked for you?
Yeah. I think that's a great question, because especially in this industry, a lot of people, try running a restaurant. 65-70% restaurants fail in the first year. And only about 10% survive beyond the third year. And I've seen this very closely, having built the entire business for Rebel Foods in South from scratch from 2013 to 17. And I had the opportunity to talk to a lot of restaurant owners during that time. And what people probably realize is a great idea ends up being, in some cases, a small customer segment. For example, you feel that you have launched Mexican and there's a great product you have, but you have to really think about whether in that area, for the price point that you have, are you providing something which is truly unique against everybody else who has Mexican food in that area? First of all, are you providing something which makes all the customers in that area choose you over others? And in restaurants, what happens is, if I'm having Mexican today, I'll probably not have Mexican again, during this entire month. I'll try it again next month. Now, if you're only serving Mexican, either it has to be something which is so special that you can make me order every week, and I got like this, maybe 100 other customers, which gives you enough orders to make a profit. or you have more categories which are which are available to the customer. And that's why multi-cuisine restaurants, let's say a Haldiram's or a Bikaner wala, which have North Indian and South Indian and other categories, they are serving various missions, and they can also, therefore get multiple orders from customers. So I think a lot of restaurateurs think that they have a great product, but what they don't factor in is that the customers have a very limited frequency of ordering when it comes to that particular cuisine. The other is managing overheads in this business is tough. Rentals in India are the highest as percentage of sales globally. So people end up spending a lot of money on rent, and it's not uncommon to see people for a 500 square foot space paying 1.5 2 lakh rupees monthly rent, and to recover that they need to do 15-20 lakhs of sales, which becomes difficult, especially if the cuisine is a specialized one. And that's where I think the economics don't work out. And in a dine-in model, you also end up spending a lot of money on doing the interiors. So, for a 500 square feet space, you would typically easily spend 40-50 lakhs. And then, restaurateurs, they get they start thinking about when will the return come. Another challenge which we have in the industry is that of attrition, managing labor. It's not easy to be in a kitchen for a kitchen team member to be in the kitchen for 8 to 9 hours standing and working, and the kitchen heat is something that is unavoidable, even if you put AC. So attrition in the industry is high, and companies take various steps to solve it. But I would say some of these things, the product market fit, which is does your cuisine have a sizable market in your area, rentals, and managing kitchen overheads and attrition. I think these are some of the challenges because of which a lot of restaurants fail, to your question. And we've had our share of figuring out these things, over the course of many, many years.
But Raghav, I have to ask you that, of course, you're doing so, of course, your numbers and the scale are far, there's no comparison with the restaurant business in India. I want to understand cloud kitchen, because there's so many cloud kitchens which have also come. You'll know it, right? You will know it the best. There's so many come, and there's so many which have gone. And some of the big players have also ventured into cloud kitchen format, and it hasn't worked. What do you think has worked for you then?
I think for us, a couple of things which we focused on from the very beginning is a maniacal focus on customer experience. Fortunately, delivery allows you to send a message to the customer, get the rating every single time. In dine-in, if you're serving 100 customers, a lot of them will not leave a feedback for you. But in delivery, you can reach the customer with a text message or an in-app message. Customer can rate you on a scale of 5. You can track every single rating. We have cameras in our kitchen, so every time there is a bad rating, we go back to the time when the order was prepared and see whether the team member made a mistake or not while preparing the order. And then we, mentor the team member if there was, any deviation which was observed. If it's a late delivery order, then we look back and see whether, the order was lying in the kitchen for some time after being prepared. If it was picked up on time, but the rider took it, rider took a lot of time to deliver it. Did the rider stop somewhere in between? We have the rider app, so we can track exactly how much time every rider is taking to deliver the order. So I think focus on data leading to doing a root cause analysis on the customer experience, which actually starts with first customer giving you feedback on every order. That has allowed us to, constantly improve our products and make sure that, we are giving enough reasons for customers to order again and again from us. Whenever we make a mistake, we think about how can we make it right for the customer, not just on that order, but for the next order of the customer. That is one. Secondly, we realized early on that in an industry which has high attrition, if we want to build something national, we will need people who stay with us long enough to become experts in cooking a particular kind of cuisine. If a cuisine which is complex needs a month of training, but then the person leaves after 5 to 6 months, it's a big loss for our customers and for us. So we've invested a disproportionate amount of resources in making sure that people within our system who get trained, they have enough reasons to stay with us. They keep growing. They from a brand chef level, They grow to a coach level, then a management trainee, then a store manager, then an area manager. In fact, we call our store managers as chief delight officers and not store managers, because they completely run the P&L of that kitchen, and their main focus is, so they are the real CEOs of the company and not me or Jaideep. And their main focus is on delighting customers with their teams. So that is why they are called chief delight officers. And we've built a cadre of 350 great chief delight officers, with which I think is the reason why we are able to give the right customer experience in so many places across the country. So we've spent a lot of time focusing on that, on building the cadre, building the leadership at the kitchen level, with most of the metrics being on customer experience. Placing a very high premium on that. Our kitchens, they have sales targets also, but the highest weightage they have is on what kind of customer experience they are giving. And I think that has built the right sort of culture in the company, which I think is something that we've probably done right. A third thing I would say is the whole cloud kitchen concept is frugal by nature. So making sure that our overheads stay in control is a big focus area for us. Making every penny count is a core value for us, apart from being crazy about customer experience. So I think that is the third thing I would say is a reason why we've probably managed to not just survive but thrive so far. So these I would say: customer experience, building the cadre of the team, and managing overheads. And great customer experience has led us to create the kind of brands that we want to create. So Behrouz Biryani is the leading biryani brand now in the country. Oven Story is a great challenger brand. Obviously, I mean, Domino's and Pizza Hut with their success and their number of years are way ahead. But we are very happy to see the growth of Oven Story, the differentiation that we are creating on cheese and being a standout pizza. So we are very excited about some of these categories. Fast anyway has been there, and we want to keep growing it. So the customer experience focus on serving various customer missions, I think that is also playing a big factor in helping us grow.
Do you see yourself as eventually, or as of now, or moving forward, as an incubator of different brands? Because now you have very good brands, and then the brands are growing, and you're going to different geographies also. Do you see yourself, Rebel Foods, as an incubator of sorts? And are you going to tomorrow also invest in entrepreneurs who come up with food ideas, good food ideas?
Absolutely. That's again a great question, Shraddha. And I want to share that there are already a few brands like those which are there in the market being served from our kitchens. I would really want you to try Slay Coffee, which is our coffee brand.
I did.
Okay. I hope you liked it.
Yes.
So Slay Coffee is exactly an example of an entrepreneur coming up with a great concept and using the Rebel Kitchen network, that becoming a platform for the entrepreneur to spread across the country. So we saw that Slay is a great product market fit. People are ordering the coffee every single day in the morning. It's like muscle memory. It has become for people. When we saw that, then we made sure that we worked with Chaitanya, who's the founder of Slay. We even invested in the company, and now Slay Coffee is there in 100+ locations across the country. Naturals Ice Cream, I'm sure you've heard of. Naturals Ice Cream through our network is now there in 150+ kitchens. So in a lot of places where you would get Naturals Ice Cream on delivery, it might be coming from one of our kitchens. Wendy's is a deal, the deal with Wendy's has been signed a few weeks back. So we have the delivery mandate for bringing Wendy's to all over the country. Burgers was one mission where we were not there. And Wendy's being the third largest burger brand across the globe, I think it's a tremendous opportunity for us to take the product to all over, take the product and the brand to all over the country. So we definitely believe that our kitchens are not just for our brands, but actually a platform through which other successful brands at various levels, whether early stage or established like Naturals or global concepts like Wendy's, they can come and they can thrive and they can reach all over the country in very short time. Some of these players, they want to come to India. Chipotle wants to come to India. There are so many other successful global companies who want to come to India. But India, with its length and breadth, is going to take many, many years for these guys to come and establish themselves. And our kitchens really provide them with the platform to, it's almost plug and play.
Yeah.
Set it up and be present all over the country. So we are very excited about that. I mean, we definitely understand the amount of hard work it takes to build a brand from scratch in a category, and people who have already done that in specific areas like coffee or ice cream or burger, we can partner with them, take them all over the country, not just in India, but all over the world. And that's something we are definitely looking forward to.
Yeah, get Chipotle among.
Yeah. We definitely hope that with the Wendy's success, we are able to showcase how the cloud kitchen platform can be such a great one for so many successful companies all over the world to come and establish themselves in India. But yeah, Chipotle would definitely be a big one.
Yeah, and Raghav, one thing I'm taking for all the entrepreneurs, everyone watching, not just entrepreneurs, everyone watching is, one thing that stands out for the way you guys are building Rebel Foods is, Mark Anderson or someone, the book, What You Track is Who You Are. And you guys have tracked yourselves very well. If you're saying customer delight, so you have rigor in making sure customer delight. Frugality hai to, matlab, chhod nahi diya. So execution has been a very
absolutely key enabler in making sure where we've got the phrase we have internally is, what you expect never happens, what you inspect, only that happens. So we have to always get into the details, and it's not just that you expect a sort of result to happen and it will just happen. Everybody is human, people will make mistakes, assuming the intent is right. And people will need guidance. So so getting into the details and helping people improve their skills, that is absolutely important.
Last, I have a question for you. I was watching your interview. I told you just before this, I was watching your talk you did in one of the IIMs. From the guy that you were, like, you said in engineering, you played cricket and wasted time. And then you worked on your CV because someone told that that's very important. And it was very nice. And I'm sure I'm just telling this to everyone watching, is that you said that after a point, engineering books felt like washing machine manuals. I'm not an engineer. To me, they even look worse than that, but I'm sure many would relate. And then you said that you found your focus, you went to Indore and you did a lot of things. You were an all-rounder. I want to ask you now at this stage, and I know what it takes to build a company, right? Like in the trenches. If you have to see the boy in the engineering college, then Abhi, and you worked also in eval, you served before that, and Deloitte and everything. So if you have to look at the journey you have made as a professional yourself, मतलब अपने आप को अगर रिफ्लेक्ट करके देखना है, तो क्या चीजें जो कि हमें स्कूल कॉलेज ये सब में नहीं सिखाई जाती हैं, जो लाइफ में as an entrepreneur you have learned and has come steady and handy, and you could tell others that this worked for me and this is working for me?
I would say and it's a great question. I normally don't reflect so much, but your question has made me think. I think one of the best decisions I made in my life was leaving Deloitte and joining Fasos. And Deloitte was a great organization. It would have given me a very good career, and I was already traveling all over the world as a consultant, and great exposure. But somewhere I was missing that sense that I'm not actually executing something. I'm going and giving great recommendations to people, but not seeing whether they are getting executed. And I really wanted to get my hands dirty. And everybody said that it was one of the best companies which came on campus. You got a job, and just in 1 year you want to leave. It was a risk worth taking, but somewhere at the bottom of my heart I knew that if I don't do this, then I will always be kicking myself, even if I go and become a partner in Deloitte. So and Jaideep had, by the way, followed exactly the same journey in McKinsey after becoming an associate partner there. Very soon after that, he left McKinsey. I mean, people work their asses off in consulting to become partners, and he actually left as soon as he became one. So that inspired me, and I thought that for once, let me just follow my heart, and it was the best decision I made. So to people in that age group, early 20s, I would say that if you think about something which you really believe in, even if there is no reason whatsoever, if it looks like all the odds are stacked against that decision, but you believe that this is what is going to make you happy, you should go and you should go and do it, because when you do it, not only you'll be having a lot of fun doing it, so the days will pass and weeks and months will pass and you'll not even realize that you're working, but you'll do a damn good job out of it, and hence it will help your career, because you will be doing much better than others for whom it's not fun. So finding what you really like to do and then going after it, even if that means that you are taking a decision which seems like a wrong one, just go for it. The life is really long for somebody at the age of 20, 22. Even if you make a mistake, it's not going to matter in the longer scheme of things. But if you get it right, then the returns are going to be many fold. So I would say, I took a little bit of a time to take that decision. I should have taken that early. Maybe I should have not joined consulting and started joined a startup out of campus. But I think then I don't know how things would have panned out, but I'm glad that I took the decision. So be fearless, and follow your heart. I would say it would be my advice. It has worked for me so far, and I just hope that more and more people in India take that decision. In India, it's a lot of people say that it's India is not a place for entrepreneurs because all the ideas are born in the West. What people don't realize is that the Indian young professional, he has or she has a lot of responsibilities. They have the responsibility of sending money back to their families, of taking care of their parents, which people in the West don't have. People in West in their old age have social security, and the kids are not expected to take care of their parents. So it's easy to brush off India as a place where entrepreneurship cannot foster because people are not risk taking. But what is often not seen is that people have responsibilities to take care of, which makes them risk averse. My advice would be that against those in the face of that, all the responsibilities that you have, think about taking a few steps, few risks, and if you give it your 100%, it will surely turn out well. India is a country which will become a superpower in the next few decades, and it needs a lot of entrepreneurs. It needs people who want to build businesses, who want to succeed, and it will not be a wrong step at all if you give your 100%.
Yeah, I'm just getting so inspired listening to you, Raghav. Tell me something. Did you have an education loan? Did you have a loan after MBA to repay?
I took a 10 lakh loan for my MBA. And fortunate enough to with the help of Deloitte, I was able to pay it within a couple of years. But I think a lot of people in the college took loans. My advice actually on that would be everybody should take loans. I mean, because that creates that hunger, the drive to which I think in the West happens really well. People from the age of 15, 16 stop getting money from their parents. They have to go to a McDonald's, they have to flip burgers, and they have to they learn those things very, very fast. So I think that is something we can actually learn, and still they go ahead and build companies, because after that, once they've taken care of their education loans, which are by the way in the US very, very big. Parents they work for college fees of their kids. Despite that, people go and open companies. I think those are some of the things to learn from.
What has money meant to you? What does money mean to you?
It's a good question. I was watching a few episodes of the HSBC initiative on the website, and you've asked this to a few people. I remember the founder of Stanza Living saying that money is something which should grow, Anindya, and it should have a compounding effect. To me, money is important because personally, I think my parents have made a lot of sacrifices when I was growing up, you know, they could have easily sent me to an average school. They sent me to one of the best schools in Delhi, even though, you know, it never allowed, I mean, they could not afford it. So they made a lot of sacrifices to send me and my sisters to Delhi Public School, RK-Puram, which is, I think, one of the best schools in the country, but also very expensive. I think I owe a lot to them. You know, in their 70s and 80s, I have to make sure that, you know, I cover up for it to as much extent as possible. So from that standpoint, I think money is important. I think it also gives you freedom to try a lot of things. You know, it allows you to invest in companies, for example, which can do well. I've been an angel investor myself in a few ideas. Beyond that, I think money does not matter. As long as, you know, the things that you want to do, they are happening. Beyond that, the freedom which comes with allowing it to money, allowing you to focus on things that you want to do without worrying about how to pay bills, etc. Beyond that, and some of the goals that you've set, I don't think it matters beyond a point. So I wouldn't say I've reached that point, but you know, the importance of money increasingly for me is becoming lesser and lesser as compared to what it was in the 20s. So I would say that is how I would look at it. But it is definitely an enabler. Money enables you to help others. Money enables you to you know, get the sense of joy from giving, which you know, I think the happiest thing, all of us, you know, not just me, but all of us get the happiest emotion when we gift somebody something and we see the delight on that person's face. So having money, you know, obviously allows you to do some of those things.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful answer. Thank you. Yeah, true. I agree. I have same view on money. Thank you so much, and we wish you all the very best with your ambition. I think, you know, with you, what you guys are building, it's a great phenomenal story for us as a country. Yeah, all the best.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I mean, these are the words which you know, drive us through the day, which get us out of our beds in the morning, that, you know, we can build a story which is not just national but global. And again, thank you so much for having us on this platform. You know, what you have achieved with your story over the last 12 years again is phenomenal. You know, you if I look at competitors of your story, which, you know, which are coming from some of the big media powerhouses, I think to stand up against that and build such an iconic platform is really, really commendable. You are an inspiration for all of us.
Thank you. Now this makes me wake up. And not the COVID. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Nice talking to you.